Right now, the federal government is holding an amount of money so staggering it is nearly impossible to wrap your mind around. Over $2 trillion in wages. Real income from real positions that real individuals put their time and effort into, sitting credited to absolutely nobody. Not to you, not to a single person. The income was generated, the taxes were withheld, and then it landed inside a government holding system, where it has remained in some situations for multiple decades. It has a title. The Social Security Administration refers to it as the Earnings Suspense File. And according to the agency's very own Inspector General, it has now grown to more than $2.15 trillion in wages, distributed across over 400 million unmatched earnings records stretching all the way back to 1937. Now here is the part that ought to make you pay close attention. A portion of that enormous sum may rightfully belong to you. Wages you legitimately earned that for one quiet technical reason or another never connected to your account, and are therefore not being included in your Social Security payment right now this month. And if that turns out to be true, you are receiving less than what you are actually owed with every single deposit for the remainder of your life. The reason almost nobody ever recovers that money is not that they fail to qualify. It is that nobody ever informed them this file even exists or pointed them toward the one document that reveals whether any of it belongs to them. Because simply being aware the pile is sitting there does you absolutely no good. What matters is knowing precisely where to look in order to find out whether your name is attached to any piece of it. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through what that document is, where you can find it, the specific line that tells you whether your money is sitting inside that file, and the exact form that pulls it back into your monthly payment. Stay with me through the end because I am also going to walk you through several additional ways. Your payment may be lower than it should be, and at least one of them applies to nearly everyone watching right now. This is your money. Let us go and claim it. My name is Franklin and I practice elder law as an attorney. For more than 15 years, I have sat directly across from retirees and their families, reviewing their financial situations one line at a time. And if there is a single pattern I've encountered more frequently than any other, it is this. Decent, hard-working individuals quietly receiving less than they rightfully earned because of a number recorded on a government document that nobody ever bothered to verify. These are individuals who worked 30, 40, 45 years. They contributed with every single paycheck, and then a minor mistake, sometimes one dating back to the 1980s that everyone long forgot about. Quietly trimmed money from their benefit without them ever suspecting a thing. Not because they did anything incorrectly, but because no one ever handed them the single document that would have revealed the problem. I have personally witnessed one correction increase a person's monthly payment by several $100s for the rest of their life. I have also watched people pass on never realizing they spent 20 years being underpaid. The difference between those two outcomes is one afternoon and one document. So let me make certain you end up on the correct side of that line. Let me walk you through exactly what needs to be done. Let me begin with the document itself, because once you understand what it is, everything else falls naturally into place. It is called your Social Security Statement. It is available at no cost. It lives inside an online account called My Social Security on the official government website ssa.gov. If you have never created one, the process takes roughly 5 minutes. And the moment you are logged in, your statement is right there ready for you. Inside that statement is something most people have never once examined in their entire lives: your complete earnings history. Every single year you ever worked and paid into Social Security, listed out going all the way back to your very first job as a young person, each year accompanied by a dollar figure. Here is why that history serves as the foundation for absolutely everything. Most people assume Social Security looks at your most recent years of employment or simply uses some rough general average. That is not how the system actually functions. The program takes your 35 highest earning years, adjusts every single one for inflation, averages them all together, and then runs that average through a calculation formula to produce your monthly benefit amount. So that 35-year average is the entire game. It is the single most consequential number in your entire Social Security calculation, and your payment is constructed directly on top of it. Now let me bring that to life with a clear example. Imagine one of those 35 years, a year when you worked full-time earning solid wages, appearing on your record as a zero or as half of what you genuinely made. That deflated number gets folded into the average and drags the entire thing downward. And because your payment is calculated straight from that average, one problematic year silently reduces every payment you will ever collect. It is like a single failing mark pulling down a lifetime grade point average. Except this particular average determines how much money you have available to live on for the rest of your life. That is why people who correct even one inaccurate year frequently see a meaningful increase. They are not receiving any kind of bonus. They are finally receiving the payment they always legitimately earned. And the only place anywhere on earth where you can actually view the year-by-year figures behind your benefit is that statement. Your payment is built entirely from those numbers, but you never get to see them unless you open the document yourself. The most important financial figure of your entire retirement, constructed from information you have never once been shown. So how does your money end up inside that $2 trillion pile in the first place? Here is the mechanism, and it is far simpler than you might expect. Every figure on your record originated from a payroll report that your employer submitted throughout your entire working career. Decades of reports from every single position you ever held. And for your wages to attach properly to your record, two elements must match with complete precision. The name and social security number on that submitted report must line up exactly with what the government holds on file for you. If they fail to match, even slightly, the system has no way of determining whose wages they belong to, so rather than crediting them to you, it drops them directly into the Earnings Suspense File. That holding system, where they remain uncounted. The Social Security Administration processes roughly 245 million wage reports every single year. And historically, approximately 2% of all wage items for any given year end up unmatched and sitting in suspense. 2% may seem insignificant until you recognise that it has compounded year after year since 1937 into 400 million records and more than $2 trillion. And even when your wages do attach to your record, they can attach incorrectly. An employer enters the wrong dollar amount. A year gets recorded as a zero when you are actively working the entire time. A number gets transposed during entry. Every single one of those mistakes pulls your 35-year average downward, which means the payment you are currently living on is smaller than it is supposed to be. And this is not a trivial discrepancy. According to the Social Security Administration's own published data, a single year of missing or understated wages can reduce your monthly benefit by approximately $100. Let that sink in for a moment. One incorrect year. $100 per month. That is $1,200 every year. Gone. Over a 20-year retirement, that single mistake quietly cost you around $24,000. From one wrong line you never even knew existed. And if 2 or 3 years carry errors, you simply multiply that figure straight out. Here is the part that should make you feel both frustrated and motivated to take action. Social Security does not correct these errors on your behalf. There is no automatic review process, no alert system, no letter arriving in your mailbox informing you that your record appears incorrect. The data goes in, your payment comes out, and unless you personally open that statement and review it carefully, the mistake simply sits there, reducing your benefit for as long as you are alive. So which individuals are most likely to have money sitting inside that file right now? Let me give you 4 categories. If you recognize yourself in any of them, you should be checking this week, because the likelihood that something is wrong with your record increases considerably. First, anyone who worked for a small business, particularly during the 1980s and 1990s. Back during that era, a great deal of payroll was processed by hand by an owner working from a paper ledger, and genuine mistakes occurred far more frequently than they do today. If you spent years working at a small shop, a neighborhood company, or a family-operated business, your record is exactly the type most prone to carrying errors. Second, anyone who was ever self-employed, including freelancers, independent contractors, and individuals who operated their own business and paid self-employment taxes. The way those earnings get reported creates considerable room for a year to be recorded incorrectly or to never appear on your record at all. If you worked independently even for a handful of years, examine those years with particular care. Third, anyone who changed employers frequently. Every single time you began working for a new employer, that represented one additional opportunity for someone in a payroll department to mistype your name or social security number and send your wages into that suspense file instead of onto your personal record. More jobs means more opportunities for something to go wrong. And fourth, and this is the largest one and the most frequently overlooked, women who change their last name following a marriage or a divorce, and whose updated name was never properly reported to Social Security. This is one of the single greatest contributors to that suspense file. Think carefully about what occurs in this situation. Your employer reports your wages under your married name, but Social Security still has your maiden name recorded on file, or vice versa. The names fail to align, so those wages never connect to your record. They go directly into the pile credited to no one. Years of genuine work and real paychecks simply not counted toward your benefit. The Congressional Research Service has specifically identified the failure to report a newly married name as one of the leading causes of these mismatches. If you have changed your name even a single time in your life, this is one of the most significant things you could ever take 5 minutes to verify. And let me quietly add a fifth category. Anyone who continued working while a name change, a divorce, or an immigration status adjustment was being processed. Any significant life event that touched your legal name or your official paperwork represents a moment when wages can slip through the cracks. There is one more thing contained within that statement that consistently surprises people, and it can carry considerable financial value. If you have fewer than 35 years of recorded earnings, and many people genuinely do, because they took time away from the workforce to raise children, pursue additional education, care for an aging family member, or work to a position not covered under Social Security, then the system does something you absolutely need to understand. In order to reach 35 years, it fills each empty year with a zero. And those zeros feed directly into your average and pull your payment down significantly. But here is where the opportunity lies. Sometimes those years are not genuinely empty. Sometimes you are actually working during those years, and the earnings simply never got recorded properly or landed inside the suspense file under a mismatched name. Identifying one real working year that is appearing on your record as a zero and successfully correcting it can add anywhere from $50 to $150 per month to your benefit. Find 2 or 3 such years, and now you are looking at a meaningful, permanent increase that stays with you for the rest of your life. Every zero is worth examining carefully, because every zero might represent a year of your money sitting uncounted in that file. Let me make this real by walking through a specific example. I'm going to refer to her as Dolores. Dolores and her husband operated a small diner for roughly 12 years, beginning in the late 1980s. She handled everything: cooking, waiting on customers, managing the accounting, at the kitchen table after closing hours, and processing payroll by hand for the few employees they had, including herself. Decades later, as she was approaching retirement, her granddaughter sat with her and helped her pull up her Social Security statement for the very first time. And Dolores noticed something that did not look right. For several of those diner years, her own wages, the income she had paid herself, appeared at only a fraction of what she clearly remembered earning. And 2 of those years were nearly completely blank. Doing payroll manually year after year, while exhausted from running a restaurant, she had simply recorded her own figures incorrectly and never realised it. She still had a collection of old tax returns stored in a closet. She retrieved them, submitted a correction to Social Security, and her monthly benefit increased by just over $270 for the remainder of her life. That money had been absent from her future payment for nearly 30 years, sitting in the gap between what she actually earned and what got properly recorded. Same Dolores, same effort, same diner. The only thing that changed is that one afternoon she finally looked. Let me share one more example, because this is the situation that concerns me most, and it is also among the most frequently encountered. I will refer to him as Wendell. Although the version of this I see most commonly happens to women for the reason I described regarding name changes. Wendell legally changed his name in his 30s, following a complicated family circumstance. He continued working throughout the entire period, more than 15 years across a couple of different employers, and never gave it a second thought. But when he finally reviewed his statement in his 60s, there was a stretch right in the middle of his career where the recorded earnings were significantly lower than he remembered, and a couple of years appeared nearly completely empty. Here is what had actually occurred. During and following the name change, several of his employers had reported his wages under a name and identification number combination that no longer corresponded with what Social Security had on file for him. So those earnings never connected to his record. They went straight into the suspense file, credited to no one, for more than 20 years. Real work, real paychecks, floating around uncounted and pulling his benefit downward the entire time. He gathered his old tax returns and W-2 forms, submitted the necessary correction, and his monthly benefit rose meaningfully for the rest of his life. So let me say this directly, particularly to every woman watching who has changed her name even once through marriage or divorce. Go and verify this immediately. You may be owed more than anyone else currently watching this video. So here is precisely what to do, laid out step by step. Write this down or simply watch this section again. But before the steps, do one important thing first. Gather anything that documents what you actually earned throughout your working life. Old W-2 forms, old tax returns, old pay stubs, even a reliable recollection of which years you worked and for which employers. Collect everything into one folder before you sit down to begin. The more supporting evidence you have available, the stronger your case will be. And if there is a box of old financial documents in a closet you have been considering discarding, do not throw it away until after you have completed this process. That box could genuinely be worth thousands of dollars to you. Step 1. Navigate to ssa.gov and create your My Social Security account if you do not already have one. It is completely free. It is the official government website and the process takes approximately 5 minutes. One important caution: use only the genuine ssa.gov web address. Do not follow an advertisement or a link from any company offering to handle this process on your behalf. Step 2. Open your statement and locate the earnings history section. You will see every year going back to your very first job with a corresponding dollar figure beside each one. Step 3, and this is the step that genuinely puts additional money into your pocket. Compare those figures year by year against your own personal records. You are searching for 3 specific things. Years where the recorded figure is clearly less than what you actually earned. Years showing a 0 when you know with certainty that you were actively employed. And years that are missing from the list entirely. Work through this slowly and give the greatest attention to your highest earning years because those are the ones most directly influencing your 35-year average. An error in a high earning year damages your payment far more significantly than an error in a lower earning year. Step 4. If you discover an inaccuracy, the form you will need is the request for correction of earnings record, referred to as the SS A708, available directly from Social Security. You submit it along with documentation proving what you actually earned, and your original W-2 forms represent the strongest available evidence. And here is something most people have absolutely no awareness of. Even if you discarded all of your old paperwork years ago, Social Security is able to retrieve copies of your W-2 forms going all the way back to 1978 at no cost to you when the purpose is correcting your earnings record. So a missing collection of old tax documents is not a valid reason to leave your money sitting unclaimed in that file. Step 5. Be patient but persistent throughout the process. Corrections typically require anywhere from several weeks to several months to complete. There is a window of 3 years, 3 months, and 15 days to correct a recent year through the simplified process, but do not allow that deadline to discourage you from pursuing an older error. Mistakes from 10, 20, or even 30 years back can still be corrected provided you have the supporting documentation. Never assume it is already too late. If you possess the proof, it is absolutely worth pursuing. Now, I recognize that some of you are listening to this and thinking, Franklin, I am not comfortable navigating websites. I would not know how to set up an online account. I hear you completely, and I do not want that discomfort to be the thing that costs you thousands of dollars throughout your retirement years. So here is what you can do as an alternative, because none of this has to be done online. You can contact Social Security directly through their national phone number 1-800-77-21213 and request that they mail you a printed copy of your earnings statement and assist you in reviewing your record. You can also walk into your nearest Social Security office, sit down face-to-face with an actual representative, and have them pull everything up with you right there in person. And if you have a son, a daughter, a grandchild, or a trusted friend who navigates websites comfortably, asking them to sit down with you for one afternoon to help with this is a genuinely wonderful idea. There is absolutely no reason to feel embarrassed about asking for assistance. The only real error would be leaving your money sitting inside that file because a website felt overwhelming. Your benefit is rightfully yours, regardless of the method you choose to go and retrieve it. Let me bring everything back around to the one point that matters most, because I want you to genuinely act on this, not simply nod along and continue with your day. Your Social Security payment is constructed from decades worth of earnings data. If even a single line of it is inaccurate, your payment is lower than it should be, and it remains that way every single month until you locate the problem and have it corrected. Nobody is going to come looking for it on your behalf. But the document that allows you to verify everything is free, sitting inside your account right now, just 5 minutes away. Most people invest more time studying a grocery store receipt than the one record that determines their income for the remainder of their lives. Do not be among them. This effort is genuinely worth one afternoon of your time. So today, take one single action. Visit ssa.gov, open your statement, and read through your earnings history, one line at a time. If anything fails to align with what you know you actually earned, submit the correction. That is the complete process. That is how a free document transforms into a larger monthly payment. And if this information was valuable to you, please share it with someone you genuinely care about, particularly anyone who was ever self-employed, worked for a small business, or has changed their name at any point in their life. Those individuals are the most likely to be owed money and simultaneously the least likely to have any awareness of it.